Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I'm the editor and VP of Streaming Media, and welcome to the third panel of the first day of the seventh Streaming Media Connect. We're glad you could make it, and we're glad to be here with you. We hope to be with you in person in Boston in May 24th and 25th for Streaming Media East, as well as the Content Delivery Summit, which will be returning in person on May 23rd. Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as someone's grandpa used to say. And in fact, that's particularly germane to the topic we'll be addressing over the next hour, Edge Delivery. Content Delivery Summit, of course, focuses entirely on, as it says in the title, content delivery. But we've got another great virtual week that we're kicking off here today with more than 20 panels, as well as a terrific workshop on Friday called The Best Streaming Gear and How to Use It. You can still sign up for that one if you haven't done so yet. And all of our sessions will be available on demand a few days, maybe a little longer than usual this time after the live events are done. And just for being here, you're entered into a random drawing for an Amazon gift card. We'll announce the winner at the end of the hour, and the winner will get an email notification about how to collect that gift card next week. I'd like to thank our diamond sponsors for this entire week, Bird Dog and Harmonic, and we have a couple messages from them right now. And before we jump into our discussion on Edge Delivery, a few housekeeping notes. If you have questions for our panel, please enter them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen rather than in the chat. It's just easier for us to keep track of them that way. Also, we do have subtitles turned on. If you want to turn them off, go to the bottom of your screen, click on Live Transcript, and select Disable Transcript. I would also like to thank the sponsor of this panel, Zenlayer, and Zenlayer's Jim Zhu will be joining us in just a moment. But first, our moderator, Dom Robinson, all the way from Brighton, England. Dom, hello. You're there in the dark.
Hey, Eric. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and you?
Very good. Excellent. How's the morning, or well, morning, I suppose, your time?
Yes, it was morning our time. Terrific. Yeah, we had a couple of great sessions, a keynote from Google TV, and a panel about the state of codecs in 2022. So we started off with a bang.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Well, we're
so
up to Monday 4, so yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's take it away. So we're Monday 4. We're into the 2:30 Eastern Time session called Over the Edge: Maximizing Efficiencies and Improving Quality with Edge Delivery. So two of the biggest buzz phrases for half a decade, but Edge Delivery and Edge Compute have finally come of age. If you're not considering Edge Delivery for your OTT service, you're missing the boat, and so are your viewers. This panel aims to examine how the Edge can improve quality of service and impact your bottom line. So there's the script. My name's Don Robinson, director and co-founder of Ideas, a software company that focuses on delivering platforms for SaaS operators delivering live streaming at scale. I've also long in the tooth as a contributing editor for Streaming Media magazine, and for the last few years been privileged to chair and program the Content Delivery Summit, which we'll be coming back to later in the year. With me today, I have two excellent panelists to help us understand the Edge in the context of media. We've got Abhishek and Neralla from A&E Networks, and we've got Jim Shu. I'm going to ask them to come to the mic one by one and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what it is that brings them to the panel. So let's start with Abhishek. Abhishek, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the panel.
Thank you, Dom. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here. Yeah, this is my second streaming media summit, and always found value attending these. So, in my current role with A&E Television Networks, my team is responsible for the end-to-end video streaming, encoding and delivery of streaming video that powers both our AVOD and SVOD offerings. And of late, edge delivery has been talked about so much, and we've started making exploratory ventures into that area. So just happy to be here.
Lots to talk about. Brilliant, excellent. And Jim, are you out there, sir?
Hi, good morning.
Jim. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Excellent, great to meet. Yeah, tell us a little bit about Zenlayer and your role and what brings you to a panel on edge computing.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, my name is Jim. I'm the principal engineer at Zenlayer. For now, I'm leading the distributed edge cloud and also the we call it global cloud network as well. Zenlayer, basically, we are an innovation company specifically on the edge cloud business. And in the past several years, besides Zenlayer, I was working in other leading companies in developing those edge computing platforms as well. Besides the working companies, I also currently I'm sitting in the LF Edge board member and try to get more familiar with those community as well.
Perfect, excellent. All right, and a quick word to all the attendees who are tuned in and listening. Use the chat room. I'll keep an eye on it. If you've got a specific Q&A, get it into the Q&A, and as well as I can, I'll relay that to the guys, and we'll get you involved in the discussion. So I'm watching as far as I can. But I think a great place to start with a panel on edge computing and edge delivery is let's have a little, let's get a collective frame of reference about the terms. So to each of you, what is the edge? Abhishek, let me start with you. What's the edge in your mind?
Well, for content producer and someone who's providing the video experiences to the user, the edge is probably for us is the closest that we can control the delivery experience. Before the video hits the client. So it's very it's probably our last. It's like a point of no return. It's like an event horizon kind of thing. So, but it's very important, especially in this day and age where there's this live streaming and there's latency and there is all different videos being consumed on different platforms.
Mm-hmm. And Jim, for you, where's the edge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So actually, with recent years, there's a lot of people are starting to talk about edge, and as I am sitting the LH board members, we also have a clear definition about what is the edge. Somewhere in the industry-wise, people talk edge quite vaguely because some people say that anything between cloud and consumer edge. But I think come from LF edge board, we talk about edge like there's a consumer edge, there's an enterprise edge, there's also carrier edge. But by using those terms, it's good, but still kind of not quite clear define what we call edge. From our company point of view, what we call edge is basically the point where there's a lowest latency combined with lowest cost for the service delivery, like a video delivery and kind of service delivery in the case, and also can be consumed by the customers. That's what we call edge.
Okay, so there seems to be some consensus that it's a kind of the limits of the scope of some responsibility and the point of handover to the next stage of the delivery chain. So that scope might change depending on the service owner, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is the edge piece important to people delivering content? We've touched. I've heard some mention of low latency. I've heard a few other terms there. What are the key benefits in getting content deeper out into the edge? Again, Abhishek.
Yeah, I mean, given the diversity of our audience, especially regarding where they're consuming content from, different regions of the world, on different devices, different times of the day. It's essential for us as content producers to ensure that the video quality remains as great as possible for our consumers. So for us, everything that we can do to maximize this experience, be it by reducing latency or or reducing bandwidth, that the client is using. Every little bit helps, and the edge is like, again, like I said, it's a last layer which we can actually control.
And Jim, for you, your clients must be deploying services out to the edge. What are the what are the key performance indicators, the key things that they're looking to gain from deploying into the edge?
Yeah, so Zenlayer as an infrastructure provider companies, we are supporting a lot customers in the edge content delivery business. And what we heard from them is basically latency is definitely one of the key parameters they are looking for. But beyond that one, they they are looking for the whole service delivery. I think Abhishek mentioned about the user experience. That's the final, I think, word they can compete with each other, and to make customer be able to appreciate the contents. And in order to do that, definitely they try to utilize the edge in the case. And in order to do that in the edge, they're looking for lower latency, higher performance, and also higher throughput, and all other kind of agility of the service as well. Those are all the things they are looking for. It's basically combined of kind of a lot service into the edge. And they believe edge will help them achieve what we call the user experience in the case.
So lots of benefits to media workflows. Any particular standout? I think back to maybe 10, 15 years ago, when I was running my own CDN, we used to think that we were sort of some of the, I suppose what you'd call some of the first clouds, but we were very inside out compared to the cloud. We were not data center centric. We were all about having lots of presence in many locations. So in some ways, I look at the CDNs as the very first edge computing environments and precursors to the clouds. Clouds then have evolved the business model and the flexibility and the dynamic use cases that you can apply into that environment. And now we're looking to accelerate those back out into the edge and meet higher demand in a more decentralized way from the core computing load. Why do you think that this type of decentralization strategy benefits operators? Is it going to be useful for small publishers with high value but niche content, or is this something that's really only for the Netflixes and the Disneys to be worried about? What's your thinking there, Abhishek?
I think it'll be useful for everyone. Be it small publishers or large publishers. One thing you can, if done right, it can certainly bring down costs of delivery. Using by efficient use of caching and those protocols. And it can also drive new viewers to your platforms if you provide engaging video viewing experiences. Plus, you could do a lot more customization and personalization, which is possible. Using compute at edge. You could essentially tailor video delivery for every individual user. Consuming content at any given point in time.
We're going to deep dive into some use cases. I know you've got up your sleeve there, Abhishek, a little bit later in the conversation, but just sticking with this kind of idea of who's the customer, if you like, here. Jim, for you, I was asking a minute ago about the size of the sort of size of audience, and whether this edge computing is something that applies really only for very big broadcasters, or if it's something for only very small broadcasters, or for everyone. How are people coming to Zenlayer and using this? What sort of size or what practical applications are you finding of value to people seeking edge compute with their media? So
the typical customer from in our cases actually could be big company, could be small company wise. It's not just one size fit all, we'll say this way. So the reason for that one is I think with recent last decades of cloud business expanding, the more content actually hosting in the cloud. That's for sure. So, but at the same time, the customer base is expanding rapidly as well. So those two kind of development create the gap in the middle to see where is the best customer experience can happen. So that's where the edge cloud, edge computer come into the picture. It's not something we invent. It's basically come out by the demands from the market. And that's where we start to see the business come in and support us as well. And that's where we see. And also in recent years, besides us as a kind of edge cloud service providers, so also other companies are actively try to get into this business as well. For example, like some of the leading cloud service providers are on the way to coming into the edge. Some like data center providers are coming to the edge. So that's will become a little bit crowded, but we would like to see how the business will happen to support how the growth of the industry.
And Jim, just to stick with you for a second, so would you think that the edge is sort of something like a premium cloud service in terms of how it's provisioned to consumers? Is it that seamlessly integrated? Do I just dial my service up in my public cloud infrastructure and magically push it out to the edge? Is it that easy at the moment, or have we some way to go before that deployment's that easy?
You touched some very interesting topic. So I think today we do see the edge cloud as computer as kind of a premium service compared with the public cloud. Because the efficient wise, there are some gaps we need to improve further at the edge. The also provisioning, agility of service delivery also need to be improved. But I believe with the leverage of cloud technology or all other technology wise, the edge cloud will be mature, will be much better than today. That's where we're heading to.
Perfect. And Abhishek, I mean, you know, you're fairly full stack as a consumer of these types of services. How are you finding the availability of these edge cloud services? Are they coming through cloud operators? Are they coming from telco? Are they coming from a different strata altogether? Are they widely available? Is it easy to deploy? What's your sort of thoughts and experience?
My experiences so far has been like primarily working with like cloud providers and CDNs specifically, and leveraging what they've got to offer. But you know, as you know, I see this maturing, you know, quite a bit in the coming days, and you know, it could further extend down to like ISPs or you know, right down to the last mile, you know, right before the client.
So where are you? Just stay with you there, Abhishek. What are you finding the distinctions are if you're going through, you know, your public cloud provisioning API or your console and so on? Is there a point where you're sort of running along developing your system and there's suddenly a gap and you've got to go to a third-party provider and work out how to deploy this, whatever it is, this container, this pod, this service out to the edge? Where is the line for somebody designing one of these services and contemplating using edge?
So for us, the experience has been like mostly like working with our CDN providers, you know, in deploying these applications to the edge, you know, baking in our own business rules in there, you know, for certain compute decisions that need to happen, and also like you know, handling like platform specific requirements, particularly as we deliver across a multitude of platforms.
And Jim, do you include services such as serverless computing and so on within your concept of the edge proposition, or are they outside? I've heard people running sort of Lambda-esque services and considering that edge in some cases because it's kind of outside of boundary, but the network purists might consider that's not really edge because it's not really deployed in depth in the networks. It's again, I'm trying to dig for where that distinction for somebody used to developing in the cloud might find that leap or a gap or a stepping stone to start really deploying edge.
That's good questions. So I think I have some background about distributed computing as well. So in our edge, actually more than just the networking part, we also have a lot of computing resource provided at the edge. So the edge is definitely more than just Lambda for the IoT. So in the previous, my previous company, definitely I tested like edge computing for the IoT, but we found that that's definitely not enough for us to meet the customer demands. Video is definitely on the way to provide more valuable information than just the other things as well, especially for the live video, live stream. That provide kind of more interactions. That's why people mention about the metaverse, those things coming in the role, and that will have more demands, more requirement for the edge, for the video delivery as well. And that's where we see. So coming back to the edge resource-wise, it's a whole infrastructure. It's kind of like cloud infrastructure. We will need, customer will need networks, will need some computing capability, will also need some kind of storage capability as well.
It's just worth picking up on the metaverse model there. You know, there's these, I think, to broaden that out a little bit into maybe include ultra low latency and gaming. I think they're kind of a close set of cousins in the context of edge computing. Are you guys supporting these services or experimenting with these types of services as well? Are you know, I can imagine groups of people using very intense computing, but localized temporarily for, I don't know, a metaverse meeting or a conference call, or some sort of ultra low latency tool, maybe like Zoom, something deployed to the edge on an ad hoc basis and then torn down again once the session's ended. Are those levels of media technologies that you've been deploying and playing with, or reading about or learning about? Where are you guys at with deploying these things outside of specifically video delivery? Or one way video delivery. So.
You know, from our perspective, I mean, like we've looked at things like you know, watch parties and things like that. You know, where you could have like social viewing of content together, we haven't fully operationalized anything of that nature, but I can certainly see the edge playing a big role there. You know, also, I mean, like a personalized video content delivery for say individual users, you know, is a big thing for us.
When you say personalization, what sort of depth? Just into, you know, server-side advertising insertion or localized advertising, or do you mean richer content? I'm thinking sort of, I don't know, yeah. Richer sorts of innovation out there.
Yeah, yes, but and on both fronts. I mean, like you know, starting from like surfacing of you know, you could essentially put your recommendation engine on the edge, right, and then you could you know, conceivably have like you know, the code in there talking to services like you know, say that the trending topics on Google at any given point in time at that user's location, right? And then you could surface content which is most relevant to what's going on in that particular user's location. So you know, things of that nature.
Brilliant, excellent. Jim, talk to us a little bit about these kind of more diverse models that outside of the linear video, if you like, outside of the video on demand and the live video space. What other models have you seen emerging in the edge?
Besides the metaverse, I think it's basically edge will form a big collaborations. So in the past of years, people are kind of push the information to the cloud. So the data-wise is owned by the cloud companies. So down the road, with edge coming, become neutral kind of providers, it will enable more type of business, able to share, collaborate, and utilize those kind of resources. So that's what we thought as well. So that's kind of go back to align with the area you mentioned about the decentralizations. So that will form kind of a new type of business, definitely will make content able to deliver across the system more easily and also rapidly as well.
Mm. And you mentioned you've been working in the RF space as well. So there's been obviously a lot of effort in places like Open RAN and the SDN NFV cycles of development to look at taking edge computing right deep down into something analogous to the exchange level, but you know, be the RAN for the mobile network and so on. I struggle myself to sometimes see where the boundary between SDN rather limited availability of some applications in these access networks sort of lays, and sometimes I question whether the offering of DNS is really edge computing and things. So I think some of these things have adopt the titles because they're cool rather than because they're really doing something innovative out there. But what you've mentioned, you've done some work out in that space. What have you seen out in the wilds of the RAN and the edge computing in those types of environments?
Perfect. So as definitely we are looking for lowest latency and lowest cost combined to deliver the service, right? So in that case, we need to improve the infrastructure able to deliver what we're supposed to deliver, the latency wise, the cost optimization as well. So that means once it goes drive to the detail wise, will come down to the infrastructure. How can we lower the cost? How can we improve the latencies? So the first touching point will be the network part. From our company wise, we have edge data centers. We also have global cloud networks. So all those network part will be defined consistently for the customer control services to be deployed. Sometimes the bandwidth needs to be changed. Sometimes if there's an infrastructure need to recover from a kind of a fiber cut, that also to be delivered. And also within data center wise, there's different type of network needs to be formed to support the service kind of delivery as well. So from the network part, we definitely need to keep the whole thing to be agility enough to deliver the service. That's the first part. The second part comes to the resourcing, the computer resource. The computer is not an individual resource anymore in the cloud concept. It's a group of computers, a group of bare metals. And in order to better coordinate those kind of resource-wise, we actually improve a lot in this case to make sure those network, besides network to be optimized, they also the server-wise need to be optimized to support the kind of service, like enough computing power and also enough I/O to pump in and out those kind of bandwidths as well.
Okay, perfect. Abhishek, so if you want to start deploying these technologies, and do talk as much as you like to your own use cases, but even feel free to sort of go outside of scope if that's appropriate. If you're talking to a developer who's thinking about deploying these types of technologies or their own technologies at the edge, what would you recommend would be the sort of path? Are there particular partners or particular types, if you don't want to name any particular vendors, if there are particular types of partners that would be good to work with, other particular technologies, maybe open source technologies that you found are useful? And before you take 10 seconds to think about that, what I also just say to the chat room, if you're tuned in and listening, if you're in the attendee room, do throw some questions in the chat room, do come in on the Q&A. Some great minds here to tap on things, so do come in. So yes, Abhishek, what sort of recommendation would you make to people thinking about doing these deployments based on your experience?
Specifically from like a streaming video perspective, working with your CDNs would be a good place to start. And, most of them have like containerized applications, support containerized applications that they can deploy easily across their POPs. So, these could be, these would be in any programming language of choice. So yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we'd start off always with the CDN, partner CDNs, and then take it from there.
And does that limited you in any way? So you say in the language of your choice. Is it really an open environment to run applications in any language?
Right. So yeah, so it has, in the initial stage of adoption, not all languages were supported. Like, for example, we quite a lot of programming in Rust, which needed to be done. But now there's more support for things like TypeScript and JavaScript too. So so I don't see any language limitations holding people up in the near future. Yeah, it's more a question of like how best you design the system, right from the end-to-end experience.
Perfect. And Jim, sort of an inside-out version of the same question to you. Within the scope of what Zenlayer can offer to somebody developing a media workflow, do you feel that you can offer a fairly one-stop solution, or do you find you're often recommending working with specific partners for different types of capabilities across those workflows?
So I think edge computing is basically a big scope compared with just what we have seen in public cloud. So we definitely provide infrastructure enough to enable the service for the content delivery. But beyond that one, we are also actively working with ecosystem, like for the container company, VM, virtual machine company, able to integrate the whole solution to the customers as well. So I think the whole concept for the edge, I think, is way bigger than existing public cloud. It's very hard, I think, but today there's the kind of a silos dominations in the public cloud, but down the road into the edge, we'll just enable the service for the customers. So that where we can enable those kind of content delivery, enable those kind of rapid containers, VM service as well.
Excellent. Okay, so now I know we've got a bit of a case or something of a case study, certainly a deeper example. Abhishek, I'd like to, I think this will answer Sandeep's question to some extent as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're using the edge to support your Roku strategy? You mentioned it in some of our precursor emails, and I think that was quite an interesting use case. And given Sandeep's question in the chat room, I think that will be pertinent. So do you want to tell us a little, feel free to go a little techie on that one, I think.
Sure. So, for supporting our SSAI implementation on Roku platforms, we needed to find a solution to have, also support Roku's strict play. So where we needed to show like image streams in our HLS. So and then there were specific Roku expected the trick play image streams to be in a specific format. So essentially specific HLS tags which differed a little bit from your standard HLS spec. So for that, we implemented some logic on our edge to say, if the incoming request is from a Roku user agent, then do this, just do essentially like manifest manipulation, and then which would then support having trick play on Roku. So this was a use case which we recently worked on.
Hopefully, Sandeep, that gives that gives something of an answer. Jim, have you got anything to add to that? In the same, we're sort of talking about examples of how to incorporate edge and cloud into video streaming workflows.
So in the at edge, we saw some people try to cache more contents at the edge. So they definitely utilize different kind of algorithm there, able to optimize the cache hit. So that's what we see. In that way, that will optimize the content delivery, shorten the latency, but also better utilize the whole infrastructure as well.
So great for distribution side. Just one from off the cuff for me. Have you guys got any thoughts about where edge computing might be useful for people looking at contribution workflows? So remote production tools and systems that are actually creating sources of content. So way before the CDN is, I've certainly myself seen edge computing examples of essentially remote production tools being spun up locally to production teams and so on. But how about you guys? What have you seen on that side of the workflow, on the production and contribution side of the workflow? First come, first serve. Or I'll choose. Okay, Jim, you go.
Okay, I would like to jump in. Yeah, definitely. That's a very good topic. Besides content delivery wise, I think we want to make it computer accessible to a broad scope of people. So cloud definitely is on the way to do it. But the bigger problem is for the cloud computing wise is the interaction is kind of lacking because of the latency, because of the jitter, because of the other kind of resource agility as well. Edge is definitely on the way, have kind of a benefit to provide low latency interactions. So beyond that one, we're also on the way to improve those kind of service delivery. With that one, that will enable other user customers or enterprises to able to utilize those kind of abundant resources, computing resources at the edge cloud. That will help them provide those kind of better productivity rather than just utilize their local limited computing resources or kind of network resources to do the collaborations. That's what we're seeing. So gaming is definitely on the way. Benefit from this one, the content creation and also kind of collaboration enterprise networks, conferences also will help benefit from this edge cloud in the case. That's what I thought. So
yeah, excellent. Good response to Abhishek. Any comments about where edge computing has a role to play in the contribution of content production, remote production, those sorts of environments?
So, one area would be like trying to better tailor, say, on our apps, better tailor the home pages for different users. Essentially incorporating logic into the edge to dynamically, say, populate tiles, homepage tiles, and things like that. Again, using prior data, essentially data-driven decisions, in real time. So I can certainly see that as a use case, which should immensely benefit content creators.
Just briefly, I want to touch on commercials. This is picking up from Jeff's question again in the chat room. What are the trigger points? What's a good gating indicator to think about when trying to work out the business case to move to edge computing? Is it a volumetric game? Is it a dynamic? Does it just about agility in the business? What are your thoughts? Abhishek, you're nodding there. Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, like for us, it was like for the example that I gave earlier with Roku. I mean, it was essentially like we had to get that done. I mean, like otherwise we couldn't submit our build to Roku. So that was a pretty compelling business case.
It's a pretty compelling one, yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, we've I would say, you could also look at like things like, your streaming and delivery costs, looking at like, say, your cache hit ratios across your content. Like, do you have a lot of long tail content? Do you have like content that's always in cache? Things like that, which you can, which can further inform your decision of like whether it makes a business sense going with the edge. Things like that, and also like the reach of your audience. I mean, like is your audience distributed across different parts of the globe? Do you have like multiple data centers to support that sort of like audience, so that a viewer in, say, Australia doesn't request a video coming from an origin in the US? Things of that nature. I'd say those would play big factors in influencing your decision.
I suppose to you, Jim, these are scaling considerations. When you've reached a point where a POP is reaching capacity, do you scale in the location, or do you distribute the content further? How do you make decisions about where you're scaling edges, where you're taking something that was once a deep edge, but has become just a regional POP in a country because you've now got deeper edges deeper in the country? What are the sort of gating levels where you decide to extend the edge?
Yeah, so edge, well, we have a definition for the edge. Basically, we try to deliver the lowest latency at the lowest cost combined together for the services. So in order to quantify the latency wise, that's very kind of what we call this kind of art, and also combined with engineering. Right? Because you cannot say ultimate low latency. You cannot say 1 millisecond is good, but 1 millisecond means you probably can deploy those edge cloud within certain like 100 kilometers. So what we balance out between the public cloud at the edge is what we treat as 20 milliseconds is the most optimized latency to enable customer able to consume the contents, provide enough interactions, while there's group those kind of computing resources together to benefit the kind of broad geographic areas. So that's what we kind of define those latency wise. The cost is definitely keep on chasing target, because we know over the time the computing CPU cost is going down, network cost is going down as well. So in order to balance out this kind of a cost for the what we call edge cloud placement, is basically we're looking for the technology environment. We're also looking for existing technologies to enable for us to put where we're going to put the edge cloud. That's basically the choice from business as well as technologies. For nowadays, we are actually choose this one close to we call big metro area as well. We also enable this one in the certain kind of geological coverage area as well.
Interesting. And talk to me about in the video space. Have you guys had much business or much focus on video outside of media and entertainment specifically? So financial news, data streaming. You know, there's all sorts of other streaming which tends to be a little bit less sexy, so it tends to get a little bit less of the limelight than perhaps other types of content. But you know, what about CCTV? What about other types of use for monitoring and, I don't know, machine what do you call it, factory installation for, what's it called? I forgot the name. But you know, you take where I'm going. Outside of specifically media and entertainment, have you seen much deployment for video services? Deep at the edge, Abhishek or Jim, either of you? Am I going off on one here?
Abhishek, you want to talk about first?
Well, you know, my experience has been primarily been around video, streaming video, but you know, beyond just consumer-facing video, I mean, we could you know, could also see benefits of edge, say on like you know, live events, essentially, be it, you know, things like, you know, say something that requires low latency live streaming, you know, things like, you know, video streams that need to go out, say that need to go through a legal vetting process before they actually go on air, you know, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah. So Dom, back to your questions. In that case, I work in the area for the IoT before. I also have some experience in the blockchain as well. So a little bit broad, but in the case, what I thought for the edge, basically enable two ways of collaborations. That is one, to offload from the cloud. That's why we call it the case, but also enable the people from local to collaborate to benefit from the cloud. The case like the IoT industry in the collaborations for the manufacturers, logistics, also those kind of even for the autonomous cars. So that's also benefit from edge cloud, edge compute, because all the information generated at the edge, they need to be those information need to be computed, to be processed somewhere. The local machine, the local cars, maybe it's powerful enough, but cannot be powerful enough to process those gigantic informations. If they pump those information to the cloud, to public cloud, that's too far away to be benefit from the local consumptions. So that's where edge will come in to enable the better collaborations at in the what we call a grid scale.
That interface between video and IoT is interesting. Definitely.
Yeah. Another case is for blockchains. So people actually nowadays I enabled blockchains for the NFTs, for the cloud gamings. Maybe down the road, will they enable more those contents through the blockchain as well. Blockchain is kind of more broader collaborations networks we call, because they need to form consensus. They need to form those kind of agreements at the global levels, or at least very broader areas. So those need kind of low latency in the most of the cases, especially for the proof of stake and some other kind of blockchain technologies.
Okay, perfect. I've got two more questions I want to ask, and if there's any more you guys want to get in. Oh, here we've got one in. How does Edge help for live events? Good question. Actually, let's jump straight on that one. Abhishek, any comments on specifically how Edge can help with live events from Gustavo?
Yeah, I mean, you could put in programming logic on the edge to provide, again, like a better, more custom, personalized experience, especially around live events. We've used like the edge to secure our live streams for a live delivery, like controlling the intervals, the tokens that we set on our live streams. So these are probably like two items that I can think of right now.
Jim, any thoughts about how Edge can help for live events?
Yeah, live events including the live conference, the live games, and those are actually very rapidly expanding areas. So we saw our customers actually you deploy those kind of services on top of our Edge infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking for just briefly speaking for myself, we've deployed quite large live streaming services, and we certainly take, if you like, an Edge approach to doing server-side ad insertion and so on. And I can see Abhishek nodding there. You know, I think a lot of it comes down to things like techniques like HLS manifest manipulation and so on. That there's obviously triggers from SCSI-35 markers and the likes are good methods to go and explore if you're looking to how to improve your live events using, if not geographically edge located servers, at least logically edge located servers where they're at that sort of periphery.
Yeah, things like, HLS prefetching, those kind of things where you can, essentially like provide a more smoother streaming experience, just line up, like you said, like, ad-based markers and, just going out and fetching those ads, just before they actually need it, so that it's more smoother experience.
Absolutely. I think also, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, the live is getting more exciting in those days. For example, in some of shopping platform, they have a live broadcast along with shoppings. So that create more interactions between, the host as well as the audience. That one definitely need more kind of lower latency, quick responses. Otherwise, the shopping volume will probably get impacted.
The interactive services, definitely interactive services. And I think just another one which actually goes back to my sort of topic about contribution earlier is we've reasonably successfully used kind of edge deployments for normalizing inbound streams. So as contribution feeds are coming in, we've got them into a state where they're very normalized and they've got time codes, which means we can do proper synchronization and so on and so forth. So I think it's always good to think not to only think of the edge as a last mile, but also to sometimes think of it as a useful first mile tool as well. So I just wanted to touch base with one last topic really, which always rears its head when people are talking about virtualization and distributed servers and so on. I wanted to touch base a little bit more on security. Abhishek, you mentioned that you've deployed, and you mentioned it just now as well, you've deployed sort of token-based security systems. Let's just talk a little bit about security. Quite often, edge means you're operating technology in someone else's infrastructure. From the olden days of on-prem technology, this is scary, and this means your data's in someone else's network. What methods can we take to make sure that this stuff is secure while we're using a third party's infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, we try to use encryption and token-based authentication as much as possible. As speaking from like video streaming side, but I think it's just like any other a service which you essentially run on the internet. I mean, like it needs to be designed in such a way that you're keeping security front and center, especially if it's very critical towards your business. So
Jim, security. Talk to me about security both in the edge and in the Zenlayer context.
Yeah, security is a very big topic. It's go all the way from infrastructure up the way to the applications. So it's across multiple stacks. Yeah, from Zenlayer wise, when we define when we kind of architecture for the edge cloud, we always define from the bottom up the case. So when we define that, we also enable the multi-tenancy from the beginning. In the case of the enable, for example, the servers, when we enable the I/O come up, we assume there's multiple customers on the same networks. By that's why we need kind of strong network isolations. So more than just a typical enterprise, more than just a typical public clouds. So the multi-tenancy from beginning, that will enable the security from beginning. So that will prevent the first barrier we can enable. And also definitely like Abhishek mentioned about token, the encryption, that's also need to be enabled in the hardware. That was to improve the processing of the encryption messages while we kind of enabled some efficiencies. And also in the token wise, we assume the customers, the owners were able to own the tokens rather than the third party or another customer will be penetrated through. That's also another layer of protections. Definitely the DDoS service also need to be put into place as well.
Really interesting stuff. So I've got just one nice, fun, slightly upside down question to ask in a minute, but I do want to get the chat room to try and bring it in. Last one or two questions. We've got about 8 minutes left for the guys here, but I've got a fun one to drop in now. So when is it definitely not a good idea to use edge computing? So especially, and if we can try and keep it media focused, because with a streaming conference, you know, there must be situations where people dive in thinking this is the new, latest, greatest thing. We've got to go and deploy it. What are the scenarios to not consider edge computing? Feel free to either throw that question away or come up with a silly answer, but I've sprung that on the guys here. So Abhishek, any thoughts about when it would be a bad idea to use it or to try to use edge computing?
I mean, when you, I guess when you really don't need it, or something like my blog or something like that. I mean, like I don't want to style my blog differently based on what where the user is or like where they're coming from. So yeah, if there's no ROI on that, you know, if it's not improving latency, if it's not providing any anything of value to your consumer, yeah, it is a bad idea.
I think you make an interesting point there, because essentially, if I read that right, you're effectively saying that edge is really something that's going to be useful for premium services, for at scale services. It's not. This is not a bit of fun for techies to play with. It's something for people with some budget and some reason to spend that budget.
Right. If you have the budget, yeah, by all means, go ahead. You know, it can be a fun playground. But you know, if you really want to justify it, you know, justify using it, then you know, in my opinion, I mean, you'd have to justify either with through lens of like you know, a significantly better user experience, or you know, on the other side, reduce costs, and you know, either through reducing the storage costs or you know, the bandwidth, their delivery bandwidth costs.
Right, Jim, any last thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the keyword for edge cloud definitely is more like a premium service, and also it's a very dynamic service as well. So the public cloud typically can store a huge volume of data, and because the latency wise, they cannot beat the speed of light. So we call it like slow cloud or slow processing. That's fine. So the edge in comparison will be quick network or fast cloud in the comparison. So any service you want, dynamic service, one thing we want more like interactions, that come to the edge. If you just need static data, yeah, public cloud will be the best.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, we're coming up to the end. Eric, are you out there? I'm just going to summon the genie. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm here.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Wonderful.
That was a great discussion.
Wasn't that a good session? That was really good. It's an interesting. It's always interesting bringing these very telecoms-y technologies into the streaming media environment and going deep with this kind of infrastructure stuff, while also, on the other hand, bearing in mind that there's people out there who've got a real focus on video production and making good content that's engaging. So
right, exactly. Well, we had a good audience. Glad to see there were good questions. And Dom, terrific job moderating. Abhishek and Jim, thank you so much for your insights. I've got an Amazon gift card to give away, and as I roll the names here. Jeremy Martzal is the winner of the Amazon gift card. So Jeremy, watch your email. I believe next week you'll probably get an email indicating how you can cash in on that. We've got another panel coming up in 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how those are advancing streaming workflows. So we'll see you in about a half an hour. Thanks again.